Welcome to Smashterpieces, a casual walk through the history of the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate roster. I'm Joe.
And I'm Matt.
And today we're going to talk about our first game. We're talking about Duck Hunt.
Oh boy, this is
going to be a 5-minute episode. You're right.
I was going to say this is going to be an exciting one, but I don't necessarily know if that's at all true.
So first off, let's get this out of the way. Duck Hunt was an arcade and NES game and a Famicom game released in America on October 18th, 1985, but it was released in Japan on April 21st, 1984, and then wasn't released in Europe until August 15th, 1987. These dates all come from Wikipedia. Please understand. Because that seems weird to me. But then again, that was back when video games weren't exactly, they weren't the powerhouse industry they are today. So
it's like we were talking before we started recording. Technically, we don't actually know when Super Mario Brothers released in America, of all games.
So Duck Hunt actually started as, and I found proof of this, last episode I mentioned that we had a projector version of Duck Hunt. That was real. I'm not crazy. That exists.
I'm going to need sources here.
It was based on a thing called the laser clay shooting system. It was released in 1976. I've got a video. It looks like shit. I'm going to send you it right now. There's video of this thing. This is pretty much how I remember it looking. Basically, the way it worked is it projected onto a wall or a projector sheet, and it used reflections to figure out whether or not you hit the duck. Because the rifle, I guess, flashed a light or something onto the screen. And that was the original version of Duck Hunt. And then after that, they released it on the NES. It eventually became a pack-in game with the NES, paired with Super Mario Brothers. And for people who don't know, somehow pack-in just means it came with the system. Which is an unheard of thing nowadays.
I don't know if that really needs to be specified, but yeah.
I mean, children might not know. They live in a world where that's not a thing anymore, which is sad. And eventually, world-class track meet, whatever that is, was also included in that pack. And that's pretty much it. Like I was saying to Matt before the show started, I was trying to look up, what happened on October 18th, 1985? What were the happenings?
Nothing.
And the answer is nothing. The answer is Duck Hunt came out.
It didn't exist. It's not a real time.
When I looked up October 18th, 1985, I got a celebrity, quote unquote, I'm using the word celebrity very loosely. I got a celebrity death and a celebrity birthday.
And who were they?
Well, it's funny you ask, because the answer is, for famous birthdays, Yoenis Cespedes, a Cuban MLB player born in Campeche. I don't know how that's pronounced. I'm sorry, Cubans. And the death of Benjamin Moloisi, a South African poet.
It sounds pretty prestigious.
Yeah, it's pretty much the highest company you could possibly be in. Anyways,
the laser clay shooting system, you're actually underselling what exactly the deal of it was, because it was kind of the thing of it kind of pioneered arcade games in a way. It predates the arcade cabinet, and it was almost a complete disaster for Nintendo.
Yeah.
And it was making this thing not a disaster was something of a miracle. And because this was at a time when Nintendo was screwing around with a lot of different concepts as a toy company before they really settled on video games.
Yeah, and reading the whole rundown on Wikipedia about this laser clay shooting system, for the most part, just says Nintendo was only able to succeed in this because they had shareholders that still believed in them, even though they were. It describes them as a floundering company.
Oh yeah, this was a very, very difficult time in Nintendo's history. The success of the NES was a huge turnaround for them. They were struggling a lot, and a lot of that has to do with this is more about Nintendo in general than Duck Hunt, but the thing about Nintendo and why they eventually went into this huge change is because of Hiroshi Yamauchi. Originally, Nintendo was a playing card company. They made Hanafuda cards, and Yamauchi was invited to the office of the largest playing card company in the world, and it was just it was a really small office somewhere in the States. And he was like, if that's the top of this field, we need to be in a different field. So they started screwing around, trying a bunch of different things, and eventually they finally settled on video games with the NES and became the Nintendo we know today.
Which is pretty cool. I legit didn't really know that Duck Hunt was that responsible for Nintendo being the company that we know today.
It was more Rob and Mario Brothers than it was Duck Hunt, but it is relevant to the history.
Speaking of, I didn't know this either, but the producer of Duck Hunt was actually Gunpei Yokoi.
Yes.
Who, if you recognize that name, he's the guy behind Metroid for the most part, and he also, he's one of the guys behind Metroid, and I didn't know that he also made Kid Icarus. He also produced Kid Icarus.
Yeah, Gunpei Yokoi had a hand in a lot of really big games back in the day, and he unfortunately passed away in a car accident in the early 90s, I think it was. But I think that if he hadn't tragically passed away, we would still be seeing him having a very influential hand on a lot of the games Nintendo is making today.
Yeah, and then also the music was actually written by, the music. I use that term loosely.
The song.
We'll get into that. No, there's 2 songs. They just happen to be, 10 seconds long. 5 to 10 seconds long. It was actually done by Hip Tanaka. So
that's a fact.
It says also known as Chip Tanaka, which I've never heard anybody call him that ever in my life. But all right, let's just go ahead and all right. And if you're wondering what other actually known soundtracks he's responsible for, Hip Tanaka is just listed on Wikipedia, responsible for the original Metroid, Kid Icarus, Super Mario Land, Tetris, Mother 1, Dr. Mario, Earthbound, and he's also the president of Creatures Inc., which is the company that originally created Pokemon.
Sort of co-created. That's a whole thing.
Yeah, it's but yeah, that's those are the 2 interesting people. I don't know who Hiroji Kiyotake is, or if they've had anything. He's basically the guy who designed Wario. He was one of the directors and graphic designers of Super Mario Land 2: 6 Golden Coins, which was of course the first game that Wario ever showed up in. And then also was the designer for Wario Land, or the graphics designer for Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3, which leads me to think that, he's one of the people that designed Wario as we know him today.
He's also speculated to have invented Waluigi as well. He appears to be retired nowadays, though. He hasn't done very much lately.
Yeah, it looks like the last game he worked on was Wario World in 2003. So, interesting. Anyways, we have stalled long enough. It's time to actually talk about Duck Hunt.
Well, there's not a lot to talk about. It's the history of the game is more interesting than the game itself.
Pretty much. I think so. We both streamed this back to back last night at time of recording. Actually, this is being recorded the day after. I went first, and then we just went straight on over to Matt's Twitch where he streamed the whole thing. So did we hit the win condition? No. Because eventually we started to realize, and this might happen for, I don't know if this will be a huge problem for most games. I think Duck Hunt's really going to be one of the few places that it's an issue. Because getting to round 20 is not only mind-numbingly boring, it's also super hard and not necessary. Because once you've played 10 rounds of Duck Hunt, congratulations, you've seen Duck Hunt.
Yeah, it doesn't really get substantially more difficult past the 10th round, besides just being way stricter with its requirements.
But what we ended up doing is I have, and I'm glad I wrote these down, because after reading up on this, Duck Hunt actually erases your scores after you turn off the game. I don't know if the Virtual Console version does that, but just in case it does, I'm glad I wrote these down. I have both of our scores and what round we made it to. So there are 3 modes in Duck Hunt. As the win condition was make it to round 20 in 3 modes. Again, we did not get to round 20, but we did play all 3 modes. First one is 1 duck. Second one is 2 ducks. Those are completely self-explanatory. There's 1 duck in one of them, and there's 2 ducks in the other. There we go. And then clay shooting, which was it would fire clay pigeons, and you'd shoot them, and that's the whole thing.
And it was stupid easy.
It was stupid easy. In 1 duck, Matt got the higher score, but we both made it to the same round before losing.
Yeah, because it gets like drastically harder at that point. Just like the way that the duck's moving is, they start to become less predictable in which direction they'll move, and they're also going way fast.
Yeah. So my score was 213,200, with Matt's score being 270,900. Both of us making it to round 12. By the way, both of these streams only lasted like half an hour. So, in case you're wondering, what do you guys mean that this is going to be a short episode? These streams lasted half an hour. For 2 ducks, I actually got the higher score, but we both, again, made it to the same round before losing.
Well, yeah, because I missed a lot more ducks, and your score is really heavily dependent on like chaining the ducks together. I don't know if it actually scores you better for getting like chains and combos and stuff, but I missed way more ducks than 2 ducks because I got distracted by the sound effect that it was making.
We started to notice, yeah, that's a cool thing. By the way, on Virtual Console, we both noticed that the Wiimote, when you pull the trigger, makes the sound that the NES Zapper would have made if you had pulled the trigger on it, which is super cool.
Yeah, it's like exactly the sound too. Like they definitely like recorded a real Zapper making the sound and just dropped that into the game.
Yeah, that was super cool. That's not something they needed to do, and I just really liked that they did it. I didn't realize it was the actual sound of the Zapper until you pointed out. I thought it was just the sound of a rifle cocking.
No, I had a very I had flashbacks as soon as I started hearing it. Like I recognized it from the Zapper that I had.
Oh, we started noticing that the different colored ducks had different score values, but we still didn't understand 100% why, or if there was actually anything different about the ducks other than how many points they gave you. Like, I didn't notice anything.
I have no idea. It's a game that I don't really care to figure out because it's not a very interesting game, and it's actually it's less interesting on the Virtual Console than it was in the original because it's a gimmick game. The point of the game was the Zapper. There's not a lot of reason to play it without it, and it's just it feels so much more generic without it.
Yeah, and also I think it was a lot easier on the Wii U than it would have been on original hardware, simply because, and I pointed this out on the stream multiple times, giving you an aiming reticle as it does on Virtual Console trivializes a lot of that game.
But it also makes it a bit more difficult, in my opinion, because when you're actually aiming at a TV with the Zapper, it's more the motions that you're making more directly line up with where you're aiming. Like, you are actually legitimately aiming in real life, where with the Wii Remote and the reticle, you're just approximating where the reticle goes. It's not actually one-to-one. That I actually found made it harder to aim, because it wasn't as natural a movement. And it's like I recognize that sensation nowadays from VR games where the movement of your hand and your arms relative to where you're shooting is one-to-one, just like the Zapper would have been back in the day. And it's so much easier to aim like that because it's relative to real life space. It's relative to actual movements you are making, rather than being entirely based on looking at the screen and recognizing the reticle speed and just knowing it instead of it being instinctual.
For 2 ducks, again, we both made it to round 6. I got 85,200 points, and Matt got 50,400 points. I think the reason I started doing more poorly on 2 ducks as opposed to 1 duck is because I would start to panic for some reason, and I'd start wasting shots a lot.
Well, it's also a much stricter mode, too. Like, you really can't miss nearly as much. You have to hit a far high...
You can miss 1 shot.
Well, that's not necessarily true to where we lost.
No, I mean,
yeah.
I mean, for every set of ducks, you can miss 1 shot because you have for both of these modes, for every mode, you have 3 shots to hit the thing that is on screen, and if you use up all 3 shots, then you instantly lose that part.
It's a lot less fun that way because you need, like, it's essentially a mode for experts when it comes down to it, which I guess if you play this game a lot, then that can be fun, but if, like, on Virtual Console, there's really not a lot of reason to play this game a lot.
Yeah.
If you had this game back in the 80s with the Zapper, it was probably way more worth it, but it's just no one should play the Virtual Console version enough to be that good.
And then you have the clay shooting, which Matt destroyed me at.
Because there's no challenge to it.
We both agree that it was super easy, but apparently I didn't have as easy a time as he did. Because I made it to round 15, and my score was 282,500.
I'm really used to playing the shooters.
Matt made it to round 25, and his score was 784,500.
I play a lot of shooters.
I don't play a lot of shooters, so that would explain why. I think overall, it was a good time, but I did have a point during my stream where I just sort of started going insane because I was done. I'd played enough. I got the idea. And really, it wasn't the most interesting game to stream, and I'm glad it didn't last very long. And I don't know. This was a lukewarm start, but like this was the only thing that could have started it. I think it still fits starting with Duck Hunt simply because it is the oldest game on this list, and it is also like a really good time capsule of this is what video games were in the 80s.
It's a piece of history more than it is a game now, to be honest. That's really all that it's worth.
Yeah. And I think it's very worth that for being a piece of history, but I'm glad it only took about half an hour of my time.
Yeah, it got over with pretty quick. And the idea with the goals that we were setting for games that don't have a defined end was like when it starts repeating, but it's like effectively, Duck Hunt does start repeating really fast. There's no new gameplay.
Duck Hunt starts repeating in round 2.
Yeah, it gets progressively harder until like round 10, and then from there, there's nothing substantially different about any given round except just like they make the requirements stricter for a bit until you can't miss or you get an instant game over, and at that point, then it's the same constantly, and that's not really worth it.
Yeah. So, while we did not make the win conditions of this game, I still think that we played enough to really get the idea across, and I'm glad we did. So, speaking of virtual reality, I just wanted to point this out because it's on the bottom of the Wikipedia article. On September 14th, 2017, independent video game company Stress Level Zero released Duck Season, a virtual reality horror game based on Duck Hunt. In the game, the dog serves as an antagonistic serial killer, taking revenge on the player if the player shoots the dog in-game. And I want to point something out that I didn't know before reading this. The joke / thing that most people that played Duck Hunt when they were a kid have always said is, I just wanted to shoot the dog, because fuck the dog, I hate the dog. First off, I don't think you hated the dog. I think you hated the jingle that played when you were successful. I did. But second of all, there was a version of Duck Hunt where you could shoot the dog.
I'm sorry?
It was versus Duck Hunt. Apparently, it says, after every second round, a bonus stage is played in which ducks can be shot for points as they fly out of the grass. However, the hunting dog occasionally jumps out, putting himself in the line of fire and creating a distraction. If the player shoots the dog, the bonus stage immediately ends.
Is this an official game, or is this...
This was released as an arcade game in the Nintendo Versus series in 1984.
This isn't, like, a bootleg?
Nope. This is real. This is a real Nintendo arcade game. But yeah, there was a version of Duck Hunt where you could shoot the dog. So I don't want to hear it. Also, what's wrong with you people wanting to shoot a dog? Monsters, all of you. And that's really all I've got for Duck Hunt.
That's all there is to say about Duck Hunt. There's nothing else unless, like, you want to get way too into it and just having extreme high scores. But then you'd play the original version and not the Virtual Console version.
Yeah. I think the Virtual Console version was a little more expensive than it was worth, I'll be honest.
I mean, that's their minimum price for Virtual Console. It's $5. It's not a lot.
It was still only $5, yeah. But, like, that game was worth, like, $3. That being said, I don't know. It's worth existing. It's worth looking at if you just want a time capsule into older video games. But I can't really say I'd recommend. Yeah, if you're looking for a fun time, go buy Duck Hunt. You'll get tired of it after like 20 minutes. Anyways, should we move on to what our next game is?
Sure.
Our next game is Ice Climber.
It sure is.
Ice Climber was released for the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1985. Our win condition is to complete 32 mountains, which
I believe.
You've said is after that it starts repeating the mountains.
Yes.
I did play a little bit of it.
Because you're a cheater.
Just to sort of get some practice on the 3DS Virtual Console.
Because you're a cheater.
Couple takeaways from the very little bit I played to practice. I hate the game. I hate it. I hate this game. I can't stand Ice Climber. I can't do it. So this will be a fun stream. Also, I'm very happy to realize that unless this is just the Virtual Console doing this on 3DS, it does save what mountain you are on when you got a game over.
I mean, that's probably the Virtual Console doing it.
I guess we'll find out. Because if it is, I mean, save states will still be a thing. It's not going to be impossible. But I'm going to try to beat this one. I'm going to try and get this win condition, but I'm not promising anything, folks.
This one at least shouldn't be as mind-numbingly boring.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we're going to have another game that's super mind-numbingly boring again for a long, long time, if at all. I think Duck Hunt is just an unfortunate start, but still, like, it's the only one of its kind on this list, which is good, at least.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll be playing Ice Climber. It is... Neither of us are fans of this game, but I'm going to give it a fair shake. I hate this game immensely, but let's see how it goes. Anyways, Matt, where can people find your streams and or find your Twitter? And also, I think we're going to be setting up a Twitter for Smashterpieces sometime very soon.
Yeah, you can, I'm at twitch.tv/grimace_the-menace, and my Twitter account is grimace_do-menace. That's a DU because of Twitter character limits.
And Menace is spelled M-I-N-A-C-E?
Yep.
It is not spelled like the word menace?
Yeah, it rhymes with, it's Grimace the Menace, just like Dennis the Menace, but it's, Menace.
And you can find me at Detective Dobaga. Can't really say when streams will be. I will not be streaming until this episode has been posted, which, if I had to guess, is going to be on Thursday or Friday. I don't know why I'm saying this. You already know when it was posted, listener, because you're listening to it. But, yeah, streams will be sometime after that. I don't think this one's going to have as fast a turnaround as Duck Hunt did, but we'll see. Do you got anything else?
Nope, nothing at all. Not for this game.
Me neither. So, yeah. See y'all next time for Ice Climber. We don't really have a plan for how to end these out. Godspeed, guys. Have fun.